Hello and welcome to the Sundays with Steve show. And we have another great name for the show, Stephen Redmond. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining.
It was my
And
pleasure.
of course, you are the founder of the company called Strategy. Said it correctly?
That's it.
In Ireland.
Strategic AI. Yeah.
And if you don't mind, could you tell us about it, about this company, and how did you come along and when did you found it?
Yeah. It's very well, still very new. So just over 6 months ago. I've spent my career working in other consulting firms and and banks, and I've worked for Accenture. Most recently worked for a consulting firm in Ireland called Bearing Point, which is it's a global firm, but probably not very well known in the US anymore, more European based. And then back last October, I decided I would make a change and do my own thing, and really particularly targeted to work with small and medium enterprises who would be, typically underserved by large consulting firms,
Mm-hmm.
and just bring some of my AI expertise there, because I really feel that for any economy, it is in this economy we're growing, AI is enormously important, but smaller organizations could be missing out, and it typically globally, and I know in Ireland, small and medium enterprises, which is usually counted as people under 200, they have less than 250 employees, is like 99% of the companies. And in Ireland, they employ uh, two-thirds of the workforce. So
Oh,
it's really important that small and medium enterprises get that. I've been working AI for a long time. Probably my data reputation built through Click, where I was a Click luminary for a long time. Wrote a couple of books around Click View, that were quite popular and well known. And then I've most recently written a book about AI and for businesses on how to move forward with adopting it. And and that's based on working for like 10 years now in data science and AI projects, including leading the research and innovation AI studio for Accenture, working with their global organization to deploy AI for Accenture.
wow,
So I
that's
kind of,
That's very
yeah,
impressive. That's a long list of things that you do. That is
yeah.
awesome. So you started this 10 years ago, like to get deep into the AI knowledge and learning?
Yeah, I moved. So I was up to that point, I'd been BI, so business intelligence would have been
Hmm.
my big thing. On like I've been doing reporting and business intelligence for a long time. So like data is my foundation. It's but yeah, the more into the data science and AI. So I joined Deutsche Bank in 2015, as a visualization lead, but got heavily involved in other deep analytics projects there. And that was when I, learned the whole big data kind of era where people were working with big data lakes and of large amounts of data. So that was a fun experience. I actually went back to college at that stage and did a master's in data analytics,
Hmm.
which I graduated in 2017.
Oh,
And about a week after I graduated, then the Google researchers gave their paper, "Attention is all you need," at the NIPS conference, I think it was in California, and that was the one that had the transformer models, which is what all of the text generative AIs that we are using now are based off.
oh,
So
and you wrote the book
yeah,
about it too. Like I was going to ask you about the book, The Curious to Capable,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And everybody's talking about AI. Like you mentioned in small companies, but big companies, very big companies, governments, everybody's talking about AI because it's inevitable that it's I don't want to say it's taking over, but it's definitely
yeah.
now integral part of our lives. How did you think about, okay, you know what, let me write a book about it? And also, second part of a question about it, like, in the short version what the book is about? How did you come
Yeah.
to it? And also, do you feel like now with the AI's involvement in every aspect of our lives, would AI take over the part where AI could write books now?
Okay. Well, actually, this book was drafted with AI.
Okay.
Um, so I completely now all of the input documents and the ideas and the research is all the stuff that I had done. And although some of the research I had actually used AI for as well, because deep research is very good at doing. I like the Google deep research tool because it has access to the Google search engine, which is the best search engine going at the
Hmm.
moment. So I used those. I had my own work. So as a consultant, I have a framework. So and I developed that when I started the business 6 months ago, and I was doing some work to update that framework. And then I thought, I can use this and use this research as the basis of a book.
Hmm.
And so I used Claude Cowork,
Oh.
which was only just out that week, or so it was just available for Windows. It had been out on Mac before that, and it's really excellent at writing documents, and Claude is quite good at writing. And when you give it the right, feed, you get really good results. And it's that type of thing where, if you know what the answer is, you get the best results from AI. So now I didn't just take what it pushed out and just publish it. I spent quite a good amount of time editing and rewriting and just making sure that it was saying what I wanted it to say. Um, but it's so I have, as I said, I have this framework. It's based off 6 pillars of, as an organization, if you want to successfully adopt AI, you can't
Hmm.
just roll out a tool. You can't just like sign up for Microsoft Copilot and say now we've got AI and we're AI driven, or you've got to do more. So it's about the framework is measuring organizations around what their leadership and strategy is around AI, how engaged the leadership are. It's about then your data, whether your data can be used for AI, because so the models are great. They can answer a lot of questions, they can write stuff, but if you don't feed it data to about your business, when the context that you're giving to the model, it's not going to create stuff. It's like if I had just asked it to write a book about businesses and adopting AI, it wouldn't, without giving it any of the context. It would have given something that was probably okay, but that's where slop lies. So-called AI slop. Um, but because I'd given it all the context, it's able to um, you know, give a good result, or at least the beginnings of a good result. It's the same, with the chat bot. If you're asking it a question about like an internal chatbot that a lot of organizations will deploy. You'll ask it a question. If it doesn't have access to search across documents inside that organization, it won't know anything about the organization. So that those are the contexts you need to be able to give. So, but your data needs to be in a good place. If your document repository has you know 30 versions of the same document, um, with the last one being called, version 29 underscore final underscore V2 underscore use this, which I have seen in lots of organizations. The AI doesn't know which one is the right one to use to answer questions, so it could give wrong answers.
Yeah.
Um, but then, even your financial data, if there's like gaps in the data, or it's not in a good state, you've got to do some work there. Doesn't mean you have to wait to do projects until all your data is
Hmm.
fixed. You can start off with, a minimum viable data set, and get really good results really quickly. But your technology, which is the third pillar, needs to be right as well. If you've got legacy systems that don't talk to anything, and they're not in the cloud,
Hmm.
it's hard to get data in and out of them. They are going to be hard to work with for AI. The easiest way for a lot of businesses to adopt AI is just to upgrade to the latest version of the software they're already using, because most of the vendors will have some kind of AI component in there. If you've
Yeah.
got to finance it, if you're not on the latest version of SAP, for example, you're not going to benefit from a lot of the AI stuff that they have. And that goes all the way. It's SAP is obviously at the top, but if you go down all the way, all of the vendors have some kind of AI components in there. So that's your leadership, your data, your technology, and then your people. So how much training do you do for your people on AI? Now in the European Union, if you use AI in your organization, you have to train your people to use it because they have to understand, that the first result might not be the right result. They have to understand how to discern that and maybe actually challenge AI and not just, unfortunately, a lot of people just take that first result and go, that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and then we see the results when big companies do that and they leave in, references to stuff that never happened and they get called up on it. So yeah, people training, bringing people with you around the change, including them in discussions. That's all really important. Then the next one is governance. So how do you govern that
Hmm.
what you're using? So if you're going to bring in an AI model, so if you bring in one of the models or you're using one of the models from the big companies, you have to assume that it's not going to have that much bias. It will have some bias in there. Because it's built on the internet, so it's got bias in there. So people need to be aware of that. But if you actually then are bringing your own data into that discussion as well, is there bias in your data? You've got to make sure that the AI is doing the right thing. Again, in the European Union, companies are being asked to, judge the risk level of their AI things that they're deploying. So, especially if they're used in HR areas, if they're judging people, if they're making, jobs, looking at resumes and kind of matching people to jobs, that's a really high risk area,
Yeah.
you know, because you're making determinations about people and AIs make mistakes. So, how do you govern that? Um, and you should have, if you even a small organization, you should have at least a couple of people who make decisions around what AIs are used and how they're used. As the organization grows bigger, you need a bigger kind of council looking at that with representations from different parts of the business. Um, and then the very last thing, and this is the one that the vast majority of business have not looked at, is process integration.
Mm.
One of the things I've been talking about for a long time is paving calf paths. Now, people look at me and go, what
Yeah.
do you
I
mean
don't know what
by
that
that?
means.
So it's an old thing, and there's an old poem about a calf that walks across a field and wanders across the fields, from here to here, and then a rabbit kind of follows it, and eventually there's this path kind of grows because everyone follows, and that's the path everyone uses. It's a bit
Mhm.
twisty and turny, but it's the path is there, and then 200 years later, it's a city street because it's been paved over, but it's still twisty and turny, and you can get down it in a motor vehicle, but it's actually you have to do it slowly because it's not safe. We know all about that in Ireland because actually the Irish language word for road is boher, which actually means cow path
Oh, wow.
because all of our roads were not designed to get from one village to the next. They're not designed at all. They were for moving cows from one field to another. you
Wow.
know, and you probably have to go round somebody else's field because that's Paddy's field. You can't go through Paddy's field. You have to go around Paddy's field. And now on a lot of the roads you go in the Irish countryside, you will find you're driving from one village to the next, and you have to take a turn and another turn, and you don't know why, but it's because you went around Paddy's field, and Paddy died 500 years ago, but the road is still there. Okay,
Yeah.
but it's obviously it's a metaphor, it's an allegory for business processes that are not connected. They're not automated. They don't work very well. There's a lot
Hmm.
of manual handoffs and things like that. But if you just automate that, the process is still broken, but you now have a faster
Wow.
broken process.
Yeah.
So that process integration is a hugely important thing, and that's where businesses will get the most value out of AI. And um, actually, the other example I have is I was sitting in a McDonald's in Dublin a couple of weeks ago, and looking out the window, and there was a lot of drones lifting off every minute or couple of minutes. There's a company there that do food deliveries using drones,
Oh wow.
and that those drones don't have to go on the twisty road. So it's a new technology that completely does away with the even the need for a road. So you don't just pave the road to go faster. Just you've got new technology. Think of how you're going to use it.
I like that
So
analogy too. That's very good one.
yeah. So the whole book is telling businesses what they need to think about from all of these different pillars, and the enablement piece around what training do they need. Investing in training is huge, but pay attention to where you're investing. Because if you're just doing online courses, they're not going to be up to date. They're not going to be giving you the latest information. You probably need to get people hands on keyboard with a local training provider that is keeping themselves up to date. And you'll find that local companies who do offer this training, they themselves are interested in it, and they're always using the latest model. Like so, GPT 5.5 came out last week. If you looked at an online training course, the so I'll just pick one like a Coursera or something. So they have a mix of academic and business sponsored trainings. The quickest they can get a training from inception to actually on the platform is six
Mhm.
weeks, and that'll be a vendor one. The academic ones take a lot longer. The vendor ones will be, of course, biased towards the vendor's product. So I always just tell people just be a little bit wary of what a vendor will promise you because you know they will promise you everything and don't always deliver.
Yeah.
Um, and that there's nothing new there. That's not an AI thing. So if the training course is 6 weeks old, though, it won't have ChatGPT 5.5. It won't even have 5.3 or 5.4. The things are changing. They won't have the latest versions of Claude, the Claude code changes, the codex changes that have happened. And these are all tools that are enabling business to make rapid advances in different things. So I mentioned Claude Cowork that allows a business person to generate documents and manage your documents. It's an agent that will manage your documents for you, or manage your work, manage your calendar, manage your inbox. These are all really useful things that any business, I haven't met one person ever who says, "Yeah, my inbox is fine." It's not full of rubbish. Um, and yeah, so these are the tools that you need to keep up to date on the tools. It is ever changing. So if you are going for training, look for someone who will give you the latest
But speaking of
information
that,
on.
right? So you
Yeah,
mentioned, which is very interesting, that in Ireland, you're saying they're making it a rule or a law that the companies, excuse me, that planning to take that route. And I guess eventually, it doesn't matter how small or big, every company is going to have some kind of integration of AI, at least at
yeah,
some portion of the processes. So, but yet, again, you're mentioning how the program, you're learning some program, it could be outdated few weeks later is the new stuff coming out and it's advances so fast.
yeah,
So one, how could companies stay ahead of the game? And when they train, so when they train their employees and they invest in the training and employees all on board, right? Because they
yeah,
want to learn, they want to upgrade their knowledge and they want to get the skills to be able to move along, with all these innovations.
yeah.
How would companies be able to keep up with that? Because it's so fast.
So train for skills, not for product, is
Hmm.
the first thing. So if you and then train on risks. So what are the risks of using AI? So letting people understand that AIs are not always right and they can go quite wrong,
Hmm.
so that they be careful and use those examples of the consulting firms who have had to pay back large amounts of money to governments because they've done the wrong thing with AI. Give the examples of airlines who have a chatbot who that said one thing and was the wrong thing and it
Hmm.
cost the airline money. So these are things you need to train your people on, the skills and the risks. And then you train them on the tools that they're going to use, and then that training needs to be kept updated on a regular basis. there's a lot of organizations who will, and I have a little cartoon that I put up on my LinkedIn recently, but I've used it for a long time, and it's a CFO talking to the CEO, and the
Hmm.
CFO goes, looking at the bills, for the training, says, what happens if we train all these people and then they leave? And the CEO goes, well, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Yeah,
So it's and I've actually had somebody come back to me and says, well, they just learn on the job. It's kind of, that's just a normal thing. But the thing is, junior people learned on the job from senior people who knew what they were doing. The senior people don't know what they're doing with this. It's new. This is a
yeah.
new place. So yeah, it you need the training.
So what is your vision in this? Like, what is the timeline when you say, because you keep hearing this company, let off these people, and because they were able to replicate and automate, and there's a point to it. I work in a big corporation also, a big company, and there are a lot of redundant, repetitive tasks, which is great that they could be automated and reduces the error, it reduces the time, and we could actually focus on analytical part of it. But when do you think the timeline in terms of, okay, AI is helping us to
Yeah.
reduce unnecessary tasks versus AI now replacing us completely, and we don't, and we just, on the sidelines.
Yeah, I know everyone's predicting a big apocalypse on jobs, and I don't see it as an apocalypse. I think it's just a change. There may be some pain.
Hmm.
If your job is only doing repetitive, automatable work, it's very likely that will get replaced and automated because it can be.
Hmm.
I assume that somebody works that out. Um, we also just have to watch out for the narrative about all of these big companies who are saying, "Oh, we're letting people go now because we found efficiencies because of AI." Because they're not telling the truth. They're letting their people go because they're losing money. It's not about efficiency because it's the wrong thing to do. If I was an investor in a company that said we're letting people go because we've made efficiencies, I would be going, that sounds like poor management.
Hmm.
Because if you've made efficiencies so that your people have more time, get them doing more interesting things that will make more money for the company. Have
Correct.
them, innovating around their products. Those people, they know your business, they know your customers,
Hmm.
you know. If you let them go into a world where Claude Code exists or OpenAI Codex, where they can now, as a non-technologist, write code and they know your business and they know your customers, that might not be the best idea in the world.
Yeah.
And that's been reflected in what's been happening on Wall Street recently with some of the SaaS companies, where they're losing share price because every time Claude releases a new blog post, the companies seem to lose money because people realize that they can be replaced. Now, it's not, that's also not true. It's a bit of a hype as well, because if you're a large organization who's invested in a SaaS product and invested a lot of money in optimizing it and just customizing it for your business, you're probably not going to go, oh right, we'll just replace it with some piece of code we wrote last night.
Yeah.
Um, so that will be a different thing. I think the SaaS vendors are actually now using Claude Code to keep their products up to date. So yeah, the world will change. The world's always changing, though. You know,
Yes.
um, I think most of the law or the roles in business that are here today will still be around in 10 years' time. They just be doing different things. Um, Software developers will probably be doing very different things, but I can remember when Java and Microsoft .NET came out, which freed software developers up from managing stuff at the low level, and became more productive.
Hmm.
And we don't have less software developers in the world after that. So now these tools enable software developers to use their skills to actually create uh, better software, managing AIs to do it. And they have the skills, they have the experience. So I think that will be a different role, but you know, everything changes, always going to be different.
Yeah.
And there'll be new roles.
But as an expert in the industry in this point, right? So
Mm,
I know, and I talk to a lot of people, myself included, like I'm trying to just learn it. Like
yeah,
as anything new, when the cell phones came out, cell phones, I'm older than internet. Sometimes I tell my kids I'm older than internet. Because
yeah.
internet was like 1998 or something. And I remember in 2000, we still get a cell phone. It's like so excited. I mean, some people probably got it earlier, but we had this Nokia little brick and we were learning about it, and every time the new technology, learning about it. So now at this stage of life for everybody, from United States to Ireland to everywhere in the world, where would you say if people want to specifically maybe in LinkedIn, I know now Google, Meta, like all these other big tech companies, like they're offering paid and free courses to take, what would be like a number one or top two, three places where people would go to learn some skills to stay up to date with the knowledge?
What I would do is, depending on what your business is I would download Cloud desktop application
Mm-hmm.
and get their $20 monthly subscription. And I would so that includes the chat, which everyone has online anyway. They've of
Mm-hmm.
one variant, but it also has the co-work and the code. And then I would think about, I would play with it. I would go, okay, how might I start thinking about, that's a great question. How might I, you know, and just finish the sentence,
Mm-hmm.
and then ask the AI how to do it. And you don't need to know it to code. Just tell it what you're trying to achieve, and it will work it out.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, if you do it a lot and you get really into it, you might need to upgrade to their $100 subscription. But that could be worth the money. It depends on what you're aiming for. But that's a great way is actually get something and ask the AI how to do it. And there's an open source product called OpenClaw, which you can get and install it on a commodity machine, and it will do work for you. It needs access to another model. That could cost you money as well. Uh, if you've heard of it, you can do it. And again, you can ask the AI. You do have to be careful with it though, because could end up doing stuff that will cost you a lot of money. Uh,
Yeah. But my sister
uh,
Kate, who's
yeah,
the owner of the Datacated, the
yeah,
founder, she speaks very highly about the Claude. Like I
yeah,
have paid ChatGPT, but now they're saying Claude includes that membership. Anyways, I might as well switch it. I just need to find a way to move my data because my GPT knows me already. So I want to kind of move it so the Claude will learn about what questions I ask or what I'm looking for
yeah.
to
There
learn.
there are ways of doing that and moving that. But in fact, if you get onto Claude and say, "How do I move my ChatGPT?" But
It will tell me.
ChatGPT have their own tool, Codex, which is so you can download a Windows app for or Mac app for Codex, and it can do a lot of the same work. So if you
Yeah.
already have subscription with ChatGPT, use that.
Hmm.
Um, those tools they're coming to Microsoft. So if you've got something in the office and you may have to wait because I think they're going to do a Copilot co-work version. I think they've already released it, but the default Copilot works with the OpenAI models.
Hmm.
This new one I think only works with the Claude models. So your work would have to change what it uses.
Hmm.
Um, but it's worth getting to know those models because what you're getting to do with them, they can work by themselves and they can work by themselves for hours, which is where you can rack up
That's
money.
interesting.
But if
Yeah.
you've got a subscription, you should be able to get quite a lot of value out of them. Like I said, I wrote a whole book, a 200-page book, overnight. It didn't cost me anything more than my $20 subscription at the time.
Wow.
And so it'll just work away. Like I've written lots of code. I used to code a lot, but I'm not really a coder anymore. I tell people I don't program in Python, I program in PowerPoint. Uh, and it's kind of, that I was able to, like at Christmas time, I was able to write a card game for my family that we could play online when we weren't all together.
Like
Um,
Kahoot sort of thing. We have something like Kahoot
it's
for
it,
you.
it's a gin rummy game, but it's got very specific rules that came from, like,
Ah,
every family has their own gin rummy rules. You know what I mean? So
interesting.
so it has the family gin rummy rules baked into it. And it was a game, especially at Christmas, we would play when we're all together. But now one of my daughters lives in the UK, and so it's we're not together as much, so we can play this game. And I've also done stuff where anytime I want to do something, I just get my AI to do it now. If it's
That's a
even
great.
especially because go off to this website, pull this stuff together, and you know put it into some kind of format. Just here, this is what I want, and it works out what to do, and goes off and do it.
Oh,
So
nice. But speaking of the book, that was my last question for you.
yeah,
And you brought it up like organically. It's right in the right spot in the right place because we're already a little bit over the planned session, but it's very interesting to listen to. You have a lot of interesting insights. I'm definitely gonna rewatch it and learn a lot about it from
yeah,
it, and I'll post it today. Hopefully, all uh, the people who's gonna watch it, they're gonna learn from you a lot.
yeah.
Where can people go and buy your book to learn about it? Is it
It's it,
Amazon?
it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, where all of those usual kind of online bookstores.
Hmm.
And for people who know me, they would probably expect it's a technical book. It's not a technical book. It's written for businesses,
Okay.
specifically small businesses, on how to get going on this. And it's called AI Curious to Capable,
Hmm.
and it's about turning that AI curiosity into measurable business results. And
Interesting.
how do you get there? And yeah, Amazon, I say Barnes and Noble, all of the usuals.
So if I'm gonna
Um,
get the book, or when I'm gonna get the book, and when you're gonna visit the United States, you're gonna sign it for me.
Absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
this
And
is
you come over to Ireland, and I'll sign it too as well.
because this topic it's very interesting that you're focusing on the small businesses versus big business. Because big businesses they could afford their own experts and hire them and train people well. But for smaller businesses, I think this is the gold mine in terms of knowledge sharing and teaching people how to stay ahead of
Yeah.
curve. And it's amazing that you're doing that. That's so cool. And thank you for joining the show also.
No, you're very
Your
welcome. It's
time.
been a pleasure. Thanks
That's
for having me,
that's
Steve.
that's excellent. I'm definitely looking forward to chat more with you about this. And let me just stop the recording so we could hold on a second.
All right.